Hi, it's Winton Churchill. How are you doing today? We're going live. I'm just adjusting my camera a little bit here as we get the ball rolling. And today we're going to be talking about an infographic. And the infographic goes into the 100 best sites to work on for baby boomers. There's a distinction that I like to make. And if you've had a chance to get my book, just came out, the new retirement, the rise of the gig economy and how you can profit from it. So I'll put the link to that in down in the chat area in just a few minutes. But go ahead and let me get this link in there so that you can follow along with me. On the International Living site, we have an infographic and an article, and I wanted to walk through the infographic and explain a little bit about what this is all about. So the deal is the freelance economy is enormous, and there's all kinds of freelancers. And you probably know of freelancers like people that drive Ubers, people that do tasks for a site called TaskRabbit, that might even run errands. Now we see a lot of the sort of freelancing economy in the local area. And what we really focus on for the gig economy and for boomers and did for this book was this whole idea of, baby boomers and the activities they could do from where they were, from home, from a beach abroad, or whatever it might be. And so there's two distinct parts of this worldwide gig economy. One is what we call location specific. That's when you're driving an Uber car and you have to drive someplace and show up somewhere. And the other one is location independent. And these are the jobs that we like to focus on. Now, all that made a lot of sense to me as I've been doing this over the last 13 years, helping people figure out how to work online. But where this really changed is certainly with the COVID. And now we're seeing situations where, they're encouraging people over 60 not to go out in public yet, even though the state that they're in may be opening. They don't want people over 60 to go back into an office work situation, that kind of thing, because they're more susceptible to the virus. And so now, whether that was a nice thing or a convenient thing for people to be able to work from wherever they are, now it's kind of an essential thing, and we don't know how long this will be. But of course, it sure makes a lot of sense. As a baby boomer, for somebody that wants to earn, 500, 1,000, 2,000, $3,000 on a monthly basis, this is the kind of work that makes a whole lot of sense to do from your home and not have the commute, not have the time invested in traveling over freeways and having a second car and having a whole wardrobe and putting up with all the corporate stuff that goes on. I mean, those of you that have ever worked in a corporate environment know that charitably you spend way too much time in meetings, and most of those meetings are a waste for most of the people in them. So this is a very efficient way for you to work in the comfort of your own home, in the comfort of the clothes you want to wear, in the comfort of the schedule that you want to work on. So that's what we're going to talk about, and we're going to go through that. And I'm just punching in a few things so I can make sure I get this called up correctly. So if you will go to the link on the chat window, or save it, you can follow along, and I'll certainly talk you through this. And the article is 100 best places for boomers to earn online. And what I'd like you to do is scroll all the way to the bottom and you'll see the infographic. So you'll want to grab that infographic, and so you have a reference information for that. Let's see, we're almost down to the bottom. It's a long page. And there we go. So you'll see the infographic there. And there are simple tasks, and there are uh, websites that appeal, that contain both location-specific jobs and location-independent jobs. So bear in mind that most of us, the baby boomers in the gig economy, are looking for those location-independent jobs. And one of the ones certainly in here is TaskRabbit. And that's accomplishing whatever the task might be for an individual. So that's an easy one to do. And for purposes of going to these sites, they're typically thatname.com. So that'll send you to that site. So these are simple tasks. It could be proofreading. It might be helping somebody pay their bills online, working remotely, sharing screens, that kind of thing. There's any number of activities that go in there, but certainly things that you can do from home. And if you go to online surveys, there's a tremendous market that has evolved over the last really 10, 15 years in doing surveys to evaluate customer service. How are we doing? You see this every time you go into a grocery store or a pharmacy or something like that. At the bottom of the receipt, it says, go to this place online and tell us how we did, and you'll be entered in a drawing for so-and-so and such and such. So there's a lot of that kind of activity going on. Some of it is very sophisticated. One of our coaches, interestingly enough, was on one of these networks and checked her iPhone in the morning while she was still in bed. And she had been invited to a job. I think it paid about $45. And they wanted you to take a 10-question survey and then answer a few questions about the survey. And so she was able to apply for the survey. She was awarded the job. This is all before she got out of bed. And she was able to go through the 10 questions and then answer the few questions they had about the survey and make $45 before getting out of bed. I don't guarantee that all the jobs are quite that easy and drop into your lap quite that way, but there is just a huge volume of that in order to understand what customers are thinking about their quality of the interaction with a certain company, organization, that kind of thing. Now, if you think about how COVID is going to impact this, now people are not walking into retail stores at the level they are. They're ordering their groceries online. They're ordering pharmaceutical stuff online. They're all the things from their drugstore. So they don't have the opportunity really to hand them a receipt and get that feedback. So now companies will have to work a little harder in order to reach out. So post-COVID, we see a lot more activity coming in this particular area. Now, the next few that I want to talk about are proofreading sites. And these are sites that focus exclusively on proofreading. There are sites throughout this list where you are likely to find proofreading jobs. It doesn't mean that you have to go work on any specific site to do proofreading jobs, but if you are purely focused on proofreading, these sites are going to be exactly focused on the same thing that you're focused on. So if you are into proofreading and editing and that sort of thing, these would be a great set of sites for you to focus on. Now, the next category is kind of interesting. These are freelance writing sites. And as I go through this, when we get to the end, I'm going to talk about some general purpose sites where you see all kinds of jobs in the mix, and you'll be able to go onto those, and you'll be able to find jobs in no matter what category. But part of this is to show you some of the lesser known sites where you can completely focus on a certain kind of activity, and also to give you an idea of the depth and breadth of the freelancing world. There's some big freelance networks out there like Upwork and Freelancer.com, Guru.com, JustAnswer.com, and we talk a lot about these different sites on our Tuesday night calls for freelancers. But the thing here is that most people don't even have a sense of how big this whole arena is. Now, Upwork is generally regarded as the biggest of the websites out there for freelancers. But in my analysis, it looks to me like they might have 7, 8, 9% of all the freelance jobs. All the other jobs, so 90 something percent of freelance jobs live on other sites in other places in the US and Canada and around the world. So important to put this in context. And while some of these sites may have a relatively smaller number, I mean, you go into the Upwork site at any given time and there's probably 125,000 open jobs. But they're across the board. Many of those jobs you may not want to do, but even if you only want to do a tiny percent of them, that's well over 1,000 jobs. If 1% of those jobs apply to you. But in the writing area, if you want to focus exclusively on writing, you have a variety of jobs here that you can do. One of the things that has happened with the advent of the opening after COVID is virtually every business in the world, and certainly every business in the United States, will have to change some aspects of their business. And in order to do that, they will have to, through articles, through PowerPoint presentations, through online video training, a variety of different ways, retrain their clients how to use their services, because now where people used to come in, maybe you're not going to come in, you're going to do something virtually. They're going to have to comply with new safety standards. So if you've ever been in a managerial position in a company or a nonprofit or a government agency where you had to write procedures, something new happened and now you have to write a new procedure because the old procedure no longer applies. Will be lots of demand for this kind of thing. Now, one of the reasons for demand on these networks in general, the demand that has grown over the last 20 years, is basically every business on the planet realized that they needed to be on the web. And kind of the first generation of getting on the web was companies would take maybe their brochure and they would basically put their brochure on the web. And it had, a little bit about the company and what they did and maybe a little bit about their products and how to contact them and how to send them a fax, if you can imagine that, and that sort of thing. But they had that information and it was pretty static. And it would be like that for a year or two. Well, what companies finally figured out is that if you're going to use the internet as a marketing tool for your business, you have to have a constant supply of fresh information in order to get people to your website. Information that is of value to them. And so this really, we would say, blew up the writing category because now companies needed articles on how to buy their products, how to use their products and services, how to get the most out of their products and services, how to fit their products and services when combined with other companies' products and services, how you can get the most out of those things. So this really created a lot of demand for the writing, the online writing that we see today. This Corona situation is going to create much more demand for writing, and it will do it in a much more compressed period of time. So we really are looking at quite an explosion of people being able to explain things, to comment about things, to direct employees to, execute procedures in new ways, to direct clients to use the products and services consume them in a different way. So another category that's popular is ebooks. And of course, we all know Kindle. That's on Amazon's system. Lulu, an ebook publisher, both hard copy and ebook, and that kind of thing. And so these are a number of sites that specialize specifically on ebooks. And some writers, some editors like to work in that genre, and they like to work on projects of a certain size. a proofreading project could be 5 to 10 pages. A writing project could be, 2 to 5 pages, because a lot of the articles on the internet are in the 4 to 600 word category. Ebooks tend to be 50, 60, 70 words or pages. And so those are beefier projects that go over time. You're interacting with the author or the subject matter expert that you're working for. So this is a good category to not have that. You don't you get the job, and then you have that job for 2 or 3 months, because it's during that time that you go back and forth with the author or the company that wants the ebook, and you're working with them to get them what they want. Now, the next category is blogging on this chart. And blogging has morphed. There used to be these things called blogs, and that's where people would, uh, you know, put their opinions up there, put informative comments up there, talk about what they had for breakfast yesterday, all kinds of stuff. Well, the blogging has kind of morphed into the whole social media world. And yes, you can go out there and you can still find pure blogs, but you see a lot more blog postings, what were called blog postings now, as social media postings on things like Facebook and Twitter. So when a typical company that might be looking at having a presence on Facebook, and this is what most people, unless you're doing this, don't realize, is that you need to have 3 to 5 posts per day on Facebook to even make an impact of any kind. A lot of people get excited. Oh gosh, I posted on my Facebook page today. Boy, I'm tired. Well, no, you need a high level of activity to make that work for you as a social media category. And so lots of work in that particular area. And when you sort of look behind the curtain on those kind of activities, there's a lot of very good formulas and processes for creating blog and social media posts. There are systems that you can tap into that will help you make those much more productively than you might otherwise making them. Because if you sit down with a blank sheet of paper and realize that every month you've got to write 150 blog postings, that's pretty rough. You get to about number 15 and you're exhausted. But if you follow a formula and different systems, there's a way to work through that, and a way to stay pretty busy doing that, because all businesses that are active in the world of social media need that kind of expertise. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk about is online training. And there is quite a bit of online uh, training going on in the world. And you'll see that is started out really in the teaching English online. And this has become a very popular category, I would say, over the last 5 years. There are native English speakers, Americans, Canadians, Australians, Brits, around the world, getting up every day and teaching uh, kids or adults around the world how to speak English. Why? Because English is seen as the language of universal business commerce. That doesn't mean that everybody around the world uses English to do their commerce, but the English speaking world is, in terms of the ability to spend money, is the big prize for most of these areas. So that's something that you might want to focus on there. So uh, the that has extended now, because this is so popular and efficient. I mean, you think about this, and it's used in many cases in conjunction with school systems, their normal curriculum. And kids go to school and they learn, and then they come home, and then they may have a class or two that comes to them over a uh, a online training. And so there's lots of ways for them to tap into that. Well, of course, now with the COVID situation, we saw virtually all major universities and colleges around the United States and Canada, and really around the world cancel classes. Some are suspended all the way through the entire year, so they're not even planning on going back into a building for the next 6 months at the earliest. So what you have here is an enormous opportunity and demand for people to teach things online. And you might say, well, what's the opportunity? Because those teachers are just teaching that same thing online. Well, the opportunity really is in tutoring, is that so many more people are receptive to this as a way of learning, and that's what we're getting here, is that people that have an expertise. It could be in history, it could be in mathematics, it might be in the sciences. If for whatever reason you have deep knowledge in a subject area, that can create an opportunity for you. And many of these online network situations, the teaching online have the infrastructure and the curriculum set up, so they already have the materials prepared that you'll be teaching. It's just that you are then there teaching to those materials and answering questions and doing all the things that teachers do when they're in the classroom. So a great opportunity. So as we make our way through this list, what I'd like to do is we got a number of folks on the line. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take those. So just type them in there. If you've got a question, if you have an area that you think you might like to work in, I'm happy to answer questions about which sites might be ideal for you and that kind of thing. And as we, I'll keep an eye on the chat window. So if you have a question there, I'll answer it. And we'll go ahead and we'll talk about some of these other sites that would be of interest to you. So art, design, and crafting. The site number 50 here is called 99 Designs. This is a fascinating site, mostly doing graphic arts, what we call graphic arts work. Design a logo, design a brochure layout, but it's a fabulous system. I know that we've used it on a number of occasions where we had to design a logo for our products, for different seminars we're offering, that kind of thing. And what you do is you go to this online network and you describe, what you want. I want a logo and I want it to have this many colors and I want it to reflect this image. And here's the logo that we use now. And here's some other logos that we like. We'd like a logo that has the feel of this other kind of logo. And then what you do is you get about it varies. You can buy different options, but you might get a half dozen to a dozen artists that will create a logo to that specification free of charge. They'll create a rough of the logo, and you can take those and then you can send those to, say, 100 of your customers or 1,000 of your customers or 10,000 of your customers and say, which one of these logos do you like best? You can circulate it internally and say, internal to our organization, which one of these logos do we like best? And it's very easy for people to vote on the one they like the best. So you're doing almost a crowdsourcing selection process of what's the best one. And then as you narrow that down, this kind of goes on over a period, could be a few days, could be a week, could be a couple weeks. You're going to see clear leaders emerge for the logos that people like. And so it's an excellent site. And many of these sites have little wrinkles in them that help make them very distinctive in the way that they work with freelancers. Let's see here. Okay, here's another one, number 60, Cafe Press. This is an interesting site. This is a combination physical goods, but a lot of the work that is done in this site, people do, you don't need to travel anywhere. For example, if a company would like to have what's today called merch, it stands for merchandise. And if you're a small company and you have clients, and at different times of the year, you might give uh, your people coffee cups or T-shirts for a certain event, or refrigerator or little uh, sort of going to the park kind of little ice boxes and that kind of thing with the company logo on it, tote bags with the company logo, even all the way up to very expensive jewelry that might have a company logo on it and that sort of thing. Cafe Press is where you can go in and you can take a company's logo, just as an example. You can take lots of things and do this, but I'm just using the logo as the example. And you would pop that logo in there and you would say, I'd like to get coffee cups, I'd like to get uh, tumblers, I'd like to get tote bags, I'd like to get T-shirts, I'd like to get whatever it might be. 100 products to pick from that logo will be on, and then you click. When you select everything, and it kind of churns for a little bit, and then it will show you a picture of that coffee cup with your logo on it, and so you go through and you pick that, and you might tweak these a little bit or change your selection. You might look at 2 or 3 different coffee cups and then pick one. But the people that learn how to help companies do that take a lot of stress and aggravation off a company that wants to create merchandise that they can make available for their employees and for their clients. So very interesting activity, kind of unique, and but a lot of fun. All right. Now we're going to talk about uh, different sites, sort of what a friend of mine in Kentucky would call the Big Daddy Rabbits. These are the bigger sites that are on the web that give you this opportunity to work location independent and earn from right where you are. So Upwork is the big one. That's the one we recommend to a lot of people. We train a lot of people on the Upwork system, and that's good for many folks. As I mentioned before, well in excess of 100,000 jobs on there open every day. Continuous supply. Those jobs are turning over every week or two. There's over almost $2 billion goes through the Upwork system now. So this is really a big deal. Another site is called Fiverr. This is where Upwork is more where a freelance buyer will write a custom description of what they want done, and you respond to that custom description of what they want done. Fiverr is more of a, like walking into a grocery store and say, I want this package and that package, this can of this and that uh, loaf of bread and that kind of thing. They offer packages. So it might be a proofreading package, and the proofreading package would say something like, I'll read 10 pages of your documents for X amount of dollars. And if you need fast turnaround, if you need it within 24 hours, I'll charge an additional so and so. And if it needs editing, I'll charge an additional amount to edit. So you get more of a fixed price kind of thing. It doesn't feel like you're negotiating back and forth when you go in there. So that's, some people are comfortable with the negotiation and the setting prices and that kind of thing. Other people are not. They want to look at something, they say, that's what I want. I'll try this person out, and we'll see how it goes. So that's more of a Fiverr situation. Uh, in my mind, Freelancer is somewhat similar to Upwork. I mean, just a lot of freelancing jobs. That's a company based in Australia. A company called Toptal, which they focus exclusively on people that are certified in the field of project management. Freelancers that are certified in this field that want to work in this field on typically longer term jobs. With the Upwork system, you could go in and do a little bit of proofreading this week. You could do a little bit of PowerPoint presentation next week. You can kind of hop around and try different things and see what you like. And that's what I like about it. If you're somebody that has a lot of experience in managing projects and you have those certifications, this is the network for you, because that's all they focus on, and they have great connections with the companies that need that kind of expertise, and they're very finely tuned for that sort of thing. And then you have companies among this group that will actually tell you about remote work that you can do, location independent work, but the company uh, may have an option. They might want you to work as a freelancer, or they may want you to work as an employee. Working as an employee usually has some benefits to it, like healthcare, insurance, different sorts of things that go with an employment situation. And the expectation is then that you would, there's confidentiality agreements included with that, and that kind of thing. So there's just companies that feel more comfortable rather than hiring freelancers. They want to hire people that are employees because it gives them an extra measure of control. So there's some of those kind of jobs on there. Uh, let's see. Just Answer number 87 is one of a great site for medical professionals, whether it be nurses, doctors. It also has plumbers, architects, lawyers on there. And if you have a certain situation where you need some expert advice, and I think this comes up for me from time to time with my accountant, is that he's busy all the time, and sometimes it's easy to get an appointment with him. Sometimes it's hard if it's in tax season or that kind of thing. I may have a quick question. There may not be a big impact. You don't have to know a lot about my business in order to answer the question I'm going to ask. So if I can't get a hold of my accountant, or he's on vacation after tax season, or he's in the middle of tax season, I'll go onto this network and ask the question. And for $25 or $50, I can explain the scenario to somebody. I can get bounce things around with them. I can do this over phone or over email, and it just helps keep things moving along. So it's a very good site for that. And I would encourage you to take a look at Just Answer. It's in one of my favorite sort of hidden gems of being able to sell your information. So coming into the home stretch there, if anybody that's been awake and online in the last 5 years knows that video is becoming much more of a part of our lives. The use of YouTube and things like Netflix and that kind of thing have made households around the world very comfortable with using video. And so what this has done is create a big demand for the editing and posting of videos, and the creation of videos, and the writing of scripts for videos and that kind of thing. So lots of work in the video area. And if you have a knack for editing videos, that's very much in demand as well. If you can use programs like Adobe Premiere, and you can color correct videos, or you understand how to use systems like YouTube and build playlists on there, and set up videos and that kind of thing, this is a great area to work, because this business continues to increase in volume substantially. Now, another interesting category is voice work, and we all, experienced voice work or voice talent when we went to movies, even as a kid. You had the announcer that would say, in a land far away, hidden from space and time, blah, 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 whatever it was. And those people, I happen to know a few people that work in that business, and, one of those people, for I don't know, it might be a 30-second or 60-second spot, makes about $10,000 because they've got the voice and they've got the drama and all the stuff that really clicks. But the other thing that's interesting is just like all the websites in the world needed to get some written content on there, now there's a lot of pressure to get video content on there. And the thought is by many of the people that teach marketing and how to use a website and what you should do in a website in your business, no matter how small you are, is you need to have what's called a 1 to 2 minute explainer video. This is something that in a minute or two is posted right on your home page. It lets somebody in a very short period of time understand what it is you do. And a lot of times the owner of the business may not have the best voice to communicate to the audience that they're going for, so they can hire voice talent. And this voice talent is not the $10,000 for a minute of voiceover. It's much more approachable. And we've had people go through our programs over the year that have become very successful at this and stay pretty busy doing voice talent, not for movies, but for businesses and websites and that kind of thing. Now, in the photography area, lots of good stuff, great ways to work as a freelancer. And every once in a while I'll be speaking to a group and somebody will say, well, how does that work? If I'm a photographer and I live in Texas, I mean, don't people usually want you going out to a location or that kind of thing? A lot of the photography related work online is doing retouching, cropping, editing of photos that have already been shot. So a photographer will go out in a certain city, and this is a very common thing that happens in New York. I was talking to somebody recently who worked for a photographer, and they were working on the west coast of the United States, and they worked for a photographer in New York City. And the New York City photographer would go out and shoot fashion events and that kind of thing, and come up with hundreds to thousands of photographs, depending upon how long they were photographing something and what they were looking for. And then they would ship all those photographs to this individual who would crop and edit and color correct and balance and do all the things that photographers know how to do using programs like Photoshop and Lightroom to do that, and then send those corrected, perfected photos back to the photographer. Because basically the photographer is at their peak of earning when they're shooting photographs. They're not really at their peak of earning when they're editing and doing the polishing of the photographs. So a lot of that work exists. The other kind of thing is, we've heard about stock photography, and this is how when you go on a vacation, you have the opportunity to take beautiful pictures of iconic scenery in a city. There's one bridge that's identified, with that city or a tower or a building or something like that. And so there's lots of ways to take your just living your life and going on vacation and weaving into that this photography and creating stock photography. And you'll see a number of different stock organizations there. So with that, that's pretty much the list and the 100. Of course, we didn't go into everyone, but we give you a little bit of an idea of what's going on in there and how the pieces fit together and that kind of thing. So happy to take any questions you might have. Answer anything. I'll be monitoring questions on here. Let me pop the book up here. 1 second. We'll get you a link for that. And this is some of you may have even received a notice of this book being available prior to this. So let's see here. Did that? There we go. There's the book that covers the entire gig economy. goes through a lot of this, gives you a lot of information on how to assess what skills you have, which ones would lead you in which directions. A lot of times people are pleasantly surprised that they can take skills that they have that are not at the expert level, but at the beginner and intermediate level and begin working on these networks. That's one of the great opportunities that these networks afford you is the ability to do that. So with that, we'll look forward to seeing you on another one of these videos. Thanks for those of you that are participating live, and we'll look forward to monitoring the questions and seeing those that are might have questions after this is done. So with that, take care. See you in the next video.